Asterisk, 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 asterisk. My phone buzzes for the 10th time in 5 minutes. The name on the screen makes my stomach drop. Garrett. My brother. The same brother who destroyed my life 3 years ago and got me disowned by our own parents. I stare at his latest message. Dad's in the hospital. Mom's asking for you. 3 years of silence. And now this. I remember when we used to be inseparable, when family meant everything to me. Back then, I believed blood was thicker than water. I had no idea that the person I trusted most would become the architect of my downfall. Before I tell you what really happened that night 3 years ago, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted most. And subscribe, because this story will show you how sometimes the people closest to us can become our biggest enemies. Growing up in suburban Cleveland, Ohio, Garrett and I were the picture of brotherly love. Our dad, Robert, worked as a mechanical engineer at a manufacturing plant, pulling in a steady $60,000 a year. Mom, Linda, taught fourth grade at the local elementary school, bringing home those classic teacher stories every evening. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom ranch house with a white picket fence that Dad painted every spring without fail. Garrett was 2 years older than me, and from day one he was the golden child. Star quarterback and high school homecoming king, the kind of guy who could charm anyone within 30 seconds of meeting them. He had this magnetic personality that drew people in like moths to a flame. Teachers loved him, neighbors adored him, and our parents practically worshipped the ground he walked on. I was different. While Garrett was out throwing touchdowns and dating cheerleaders, I was in my room coding websites and building computers from spare parts. I graduated valedictorian with a 4.0 GPA, earned perfect SAT scores, and somehow managed to land a full scholarship to Stanford University for computer science. You would think our parents would be over the moon, right? Wrong. When I got that acceptance letter, Dad just nodded and said, "That's nice, son." When Garrett barely scraped into Ohio State with a 2.8 GPA, they threw him a party and invited the whole neighborhood. Even then, I told myself it did not matter. Garrett was my big brother, my hero. I figured once I proved myself in the real world, things would balance out. Stanford was everything I dreamed it would be. I dove headfirst into programming algorithms and software development. My professors praised my work, and I landed internships at major tech companies during summer breaks. Meanwhile, Garrett struggled through business school, changing majors twice and barely graduating after 5 years. But every time I called home excited about my achievements, the conversation somehow always shifted back to Garrett and his latest drama. After graduation, I scored a position as a software engineer at a promising startup in San Francisco called TechFlow. The salary was $85,000 a year, more money than I had ever imagined making at 24 years old. I was living the dream, working on cutting-edge technology, surrounded by brilliant minds who actually appreciated my skills. Garrett, on the other hand, bounced from job to job. Sales positions that lasted 3 months, marketing gigs that ended in disaster, failed attempts at real estate. Each time he crashed and burned, he would call our parents for money. And they always gave it to him. 500 here, 1,000 there. When I gently suggested maybe they should stop enabling him, Mom would get defensive and say I did not understand how hard it was for him to find his path. The resentment started small. Little comments during family visits. "Must be nice to have it so easy," he would say when I mentioned work. "Some of us actually have to struggle for success." I brushed it off as brotherly teasing, but there was an edge to his voice that had not been there before. When I lent him $5,000 to help with his rent and car payments, promising to pay me back within 6 months, I genuinely wanted to help. That money disappeared into the void, and whenever I brought it up, Garrett would get angry and accuse me of being materialistic. The turning point came during Thanksgiving of my second year at TechFlow. I had been working with my college roommate Marcus on something special. We had spent 8 months developing a revolutionary food delivery app that used artificial intelligence to predict customer preferences and optimize delivery routes. We had working prototypes, positive user testing results, and had managed to save up $50,000 between us for the initial launch. I was buzzing with excitement as our family gathered around Mom's famous turkey dinner. The dining room smelled like sage and cinnamon, just like every Thanksgiving of my childhood. Garrett seemed genuinely interested when I started explaining our business plan. His eyes lit up as I described the market potential, the technology behind it, and our projected revenue streams. This could revolutionize the entire food delivery industry. I explained, my voice full of passion. We are talking about a multi-million-dollar opportunity here. Garrett leaned forward, suddenly animated. Ezra, this sounds incredible. You know I've been looking for the right opportunity to get back on my feet. What if I helped with the marketing side? I have connections in the business world, and I know how to talk to investors. I hesitated. His track record was not exactly stellar, but the hopeful look on his face reminded me of the brother I used to idolize. Mom chimed in with her classic guilt trip. Brothers should help each other, Ezra. Garrett has experience in business that you lack. Dad nodded approvingly. Family businesses are the backbone of America. You boys could build something amazing together. Against my better judgment, I agreed to bring Garrett on board as our marketing director. Marcus was skeptical, but I convinced him that family loyalty mattered more than past failures. I gave Garrett access to our business plan, financial projections, and even some of the source code to help him understand the technical aspects for investor pitches. For 3 weeks, everything seemed perfect. Garrett threw himself into the work with enthusiasm I had not seen from him in years. He created professional presentations, reached out to potential investors, and even brought in a few promising leads. I started to believe that maybe this partnership would finally bring our family together and give Garrett the success he desperately needed. Then Marcus called me on a Tuesday evening in December, his voice shaking with anger. Ezra, we have a problem. I just got off the phone with David Chen from Riverside Ventures. He congratulated me on being Garrett's business partner and said he was excited to invest in his revolutionary app idea. My blood ran cold. What do you mean, his app idea? Garrett pitched him our entire business plan, but he presented it as his own creation. Chen thinks Garrett is the founder and mastermind behind everything. He has no idea you even exist. I hung up and immediately called Garrett. His phone went straight to voicemail. I drove to his apartment across town, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. When I confronted him at his door, he did not even try to deny it at first. Look, Ezra, this is just business, he said with that charming smile that used to make me feel safe. I have the investor connections. I know how to sell the vision. You are great with the technical stuff, but I am the face of this operation. Garrett, this was my idea. Marcus and I built this from nothing. You cannot just steal our work and claim it as your own. That is when his mask slipped completely, his face twisted into something ugly and unfamiliar. Steal. You gave me access to everything. You made me a partner. And let's be honest, little brother, you have always been jealous that I am better with people than you are. Just because you can write code does not mean you can run a business. The next morning, my world exploded. I woke up to 17, missed calls from my parents, and a text message that made my hands tremble. Come home immediately. We need to talk about what you have done to your brother. I drove the 2-hour trip back to Cleveland in a daze, my mind racing through every possible scenario. When I walked into our family home, the atmosphere was arctic. Mom sat at the kitchen table with red-rimmed eyes, while Dad paced behind her like a caged animal. Garrett was there too, looking devastated and holding a folder full of papers. Sit down, Ezra, Dad said in a voice I had never heard before. Cold, disappointed. Garrett has told us everything. Everything about what I asked, genuinely confused. Mom slid the folder across the table to me. Inside were printed emails with my name on them, discussing plans to cut Garrett out of the business and steal his investor contacts. There were text message screenshots, showing me supposedly bad-mouthing our family to Marcus. There was even a recording of what sounded like my voice saying terrible things about Garrett's intelligence and business skills. None of it was real. Every single piece of evidence was fabricated, manipulated, or completely fake. But it was convincing, disturbingly convincing. I cannot believe you would do this to your own brother, Mom, whispered, tears streaming down her face. After everything we have done for you, after all the opportunities we have given you, this is how you repay us. I tried to explain, tried to tell them the truth about what really happened, but Garrett had orchestrated this perfectly. He played the role of the heartbroken brother who had been betrayed by his own family. He had answers for everything, explanations that made me look manipulative and calculating. I trusted him, Garrett said, his voice breaking in all the right places. I brought him into my business idea because I wanted to help him succeed, and he repaid me by trying to destroy me. The family meeting lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of accusations, denials, and gradually watching my parents choose my brother over me. By the end, they had made their decision. I was no longer welcome in their home. They would not be supporting me financially or emotionally anymore. As far as they were concerned, I had shown my true colors, and those colors were ugly. Dad handed me a box with my childhood belongings and said, "I am ashamed to call you my son." I spent that night sleeping in my car in a Walmart parking lot, staring at the ceiling, and wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely. Over the next week, the devastation spread like wildfire. Garrett had been busy while orchestrating my downfall. He had contacted our extended family, college friends, even my coworkers at TechFlow, spinning his version of events. Marcus stopped returning my calls after Garrett showed him the fabricated evidence. My cousin Jake, who I had been close to since childhood, sent me a brutal text calling me a snake and telling me never to contact the family again. Even my boss at TechFlow started treating me differently after somehow hearing whispers about my character. The worst part was watching Garrett's app idea take off. Using my algorithms and Marcus's designs, his company Secure Eats launched 3 months later with $200,000 in funding from Riverside Ventures. Tech blogs praised him as an innovative young entrepreneur. Local news ran a feel-good story about the hometown boy making it big in the startup world. I lost my job 6 months later when the stress and depression made it impossible to focus. I burned through my savings trying to fight the legal battles that Garrett's lawyers kept throwing at me. Cease and desist orders, restraining orders, threats of defamation lawsuits. He had turned my own creation into a weapon against me. Sitting on the Roosevelt Bridge at 2 in the morning during a thunderstorm, I seriously considered ending it all. The rain soaked through my jacket as I stared down at the dark water below. Everything I had worked for was gone. My family hated me. My best friend believed I was a fraud. My career was in shambles. Garrett had won completely. But then something shifted inside me. Maybe it was anger, maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe it was just the realization that I could not let him destroy me like this. I climbed down from that bridge and made a promise to myself. I would survive this, and I would prove the truth, no matter how long it took. The next phase of my life started with a one-way ticket to San Diego and 2 suitcases containing everything I owned. I chose California because I needed distance from everything that reminded me of my old life. I rented a tiny studio apartment in a rough neighborhood and took the first job I could find, night shift tech support for a small software company making $12 an hour. It was humbling work after being a senior engineer, but it gave me time to think and plan during those long, quiet hours. I taught myself legal research, business investigation techniques, and forensic digital analysis. If Garrett wanted to play dirty, I would learn to play the game better than he ever could. During my lunch breaks, I would walk to the nearby law library and read everything I could about intellectual property theft, fraud, and family court proceedings. I learned about evidence collection, witness testimony, and the legal standards required to prove deception. Most importantly, I learned patience. This was not going to be a quick fight. After 8 months of barely scraping by, I landed a junior developer position at a legitimate tech company in downtown San Diego. The salary was modest, but it was honest work that slowly rebuilt my confidence. My new colleagues knew nothing about my past, and for the first time in almost a year, I felt like I could breathe again. I spent every spare penny on a private investigator named Sarah Coleman, a former police detective who specialized in white-collar crime. I gave her everything I knew about Garrett's business practices and asked her to dig deeper. What she found over the next 6 months was shocking even to me. Garrett had not just stolen from me. There was a pattern going back years. Sarah uncovered evidence of him scamming college classmates out of money for fake business ventures. She found records of him stealing credit card information from his own roommates. Most damning of all, she discovered that he had used sophisticated audio editing software to create those recordings of my voice, splicing together words from our phone conversations to manufacture incriminating statements. The fabricated emails were even easier to prove once Sarah got involved. Digital forensics showed they had been created on Garrett's laptop using a spoofed email address. The timestamps did not match up with my actual location data. It was amateur hour fraud, but convincing enough to fool family members who wanted to believe him. But the smoking gun came when Sarah found two other victims of Garrett's schemes. A former business partner named David Rodriguez, who had been cheated out of $15,000, and a college girlfriend named Amanda Walsh, who had discovered Garrett stealing money from her father's construction business. Both were willing to testify about his pattern of deception and manipulation. Armed with this evidence, I contacted a intellectual property attorney named James Morrison, who agreed to take my case on contingency. We filed a lawsuit against Garrett and Secure Eats for theft of intellectual property fraud and defamation. We also submitted our evidence to the local district attorney's office for criminal investigation. The legal process took another 8 months, but it was worth every sleepless night. When the story broke in the Cleveland Plain Dealer with the headline, "Local Entrepreneur Accused of Stealing Brother's Business Idea," Garrett's world began to collapse, just like mine had. Riverside Ventures immediately froze their funding pending investigation. Secure Eats' board of directors launched their own internal review. Tech blogs that had once praised Garrett now ran stories questioning his integrity. The house of cards he had built on my stolen work started tumbling down piece by piece. The best part was watching him scramble. He hired expensive lawyers, tried to intimidate witnesses, and even attempted to countersue me for harassment. But the evidence was overwhelming. Digital forensics, witness testimony, financial records, and timeline analysis all pointed to the same conclusion. Garrett had systematically defrauded me and manipulated our family. 3 weeks before our court date, Garrett's lawyers reached out about a settlement. He would admit fault, return the rights to my intellectual property, pay damages, and issue a public apology. In exchange, I would agree not to pursue criminal charges. I almost said no. Part of me wanted to see him face a jury and get the full justice he deserved. But my attorney advised me that a settlement would give me closure and compensation without the uncertainty of a trial. More importantly, it would force Garrett to publicly acknowledge what he had done. The day we signed the settlement papers, Garrett looked like he had aged 10 years. His confident swagger was gone, replaced by the hollow stare of someone who had lost everything. Secure Eats had been dissolved, his investors had sued him personally, and his reputation in the business world was permanently destroyed. That evening, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Ezra, honey, I am so sorry," she whispered through tears. We found some old emails on Garrett's computer when we helped him move out of his apartment. We saw the truth about those recordings, about the fake messages. I cannot believe we fell for his lies. The conversation lasted 2 hours. She told me how Garrett had confessed everything to them the night before, how he had been manipulating them for years, just like he had manipulated the evidence against me. Dad got on the phone too, his voice heavy with shame and regret. "Son, I failed you," he said simply. "A father is supposed to protect all his children equally, and I chose the wrong side. I do not know if you can ever forgive us, but we want to try to make this right." That was 8 months ago. Since then, I have rebuilt my life on my own terms. I took the settlement money and started my own consulting firm, helping small businesses develop custom software solutions. The work is rewarding, the clients appreciate my expertise, and I am finally making the kind of income that reflects my skills and education. I moved into a beautiful 2-bedroom condo overlooking Mission Bay. I adopted a rescue dog named Cooper, who greets me every evening with unconditional love. I started dating again and met Sarah, a nurse who has her own story of overcoming family trauma. We understand each other in ways that feel both healing and hopeful. My relationship with my parents is slowly improving, but it will never be the same. They have apologized countless times, and I can see the genuine remorse in their eyes. We have Sunday dinner once a month now, and they are trying to rebuild trust through consistent actions rather than just words. It is a process that requires patience from all of us. Garrett, however, is a different story entirely. After losing everything, he moved back in with our parents and has been struggling with depression and anxiety. He lost weight, started drinking too much, and spent most days in his childhood bedroom playing video games and avoiding reality. 2 weeks ago, Dad had a mild heart attack. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to scare all of us about mortality and missed opportunities. That is when Garrett started calling me obsessively, leaving voicemails filled with tearful apologies and desperate pleas for forgiveness. "Please, Ezra, I know I messed up everything, his latest message said. I know you hate me, and you have every right to. But Dad is scared and Mom keeps crying, and they both want our family to be whole again before something worse happens. I am not asking you to trust me, or even like me. I am just asking you to consider talking to me so we can figure out how to move forward. I have not responded yet. Part of me feels a twisted satisfaction knowing that he is finally experiencing the desperation and isolation that he put me through. But another part of me, the part that remembers building blanket forts and sharing late-night conversations about our dreams, wonders if there is a path towards some kind of peace. The truth is, I do not need his apology anymore. I have already forgiven him not for his sake, but for mine. Carrying that anger and hatred was poisoning my own happiness. I learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or trusting again. It just means releasing the grip that someone else's actions have on your inner peace. What Garrett taught me unintentionally was the importance of setting boundaries and protecting myself from people who see kindness as weakness. He showed me that blood relation does not guarantee loyalty, and that sometimes the people who claim to love you most are the ones most willing to sacrifice you for their own benefit. I also learned that resilience is not about avoiding pain, but about refusing to let that pain define your future. Every setback became fuel for my comeback. Every betrayal taught me to be more discerning about who deserves my trust. Every lonely night reminded me that I am strong enough to stand on my own. Today I am successful, surrounded by people who value me for who I actually am rather than who they want me to be. I have built a life that reflects my values and priorities. I sleep well at night, knowing that everything I have achieved came through honest work and genuine relationships. Will I eventually talk to Garrett? Maybe. But if I do, it will be on my terms with clear boundaries, and only after he demonstrates through actions rather than words that he has truly changed. I am no longer the naive younger brother who believed that family loyalty meant accepting abuse and manipulation. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who teach us to be strongest. Sometimes getting disowned by toxic family members is actually a gift that frees us to build healthier relationships. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well and refusing to let someone else's darkness dim your light. So here I sit looking at Garrett's latest desperate message, and I realize I am no longer angry. I am not hurt or bitter or seeking revenge. I am just free. Free to choose my own family, free to set my own standards, and free to walk away from people who do not deserve a place in my life. What would you do if your own family chose to believe a lie over you? Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic relatives to protect your peace? Let me know in the comments below because your perspective matters. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and finding strength. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they can survive family dysfunction and build something better. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Keep fighting for the life you deserve.